Hey, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Pooja. Thanks for asking me. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I can tell you about myself. I'm a bit of an old git. I was born in 1949, so I was brought up, in the early 60s, and went to college in London in the late 60s. So I was all part of the music scene there. Used to go to 2 or 3 gigs a week and the whole thing. The best place in the world to be, I reckon. So I had a great time in the 60s with all the music that was going on. And then in the 70s, had a family and started a career in education. So I worked in a secondary school teaching biology and then worked my way up in the same school, 36 years, until I was a head teacher. And was a head teacher in the same school that I started in. Had a year in Los Angeles. Taught in an American school in Los Angeles, which was a very interesting year, and we toured all around the States with my family. That was incredible. And then, let me see, I suppose 12 years ago, I retired so that I could devote myself to writing, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Writing, writing, writing. And today, I just finished the first draft of my next novel, a sci-fi novel. So that's a little bit about me. Anything you'd like me to go over?
Congratulations on finishing the book. That's really amazing. I know you have a lot of writing projects out. Like you have so many books, which is so impressive.
Yeah, far too many. Yeah, I've written over 100 books, Pooch.
Wow, that's really impressive. Like even writing one, I'm like, maybe I should choose a different path in life.
Yeah. Well, I only started writing this last one. I
Mhm.
only started writing that about 6 weeks ago.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember on my blog, I put out a little short story I'd written about the trapdoor in the floor.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember reading that. It was like a little excerpt of it.
yeah, well, that sort of grew into a novel.
Oh,
So I've got 5 unpublished science fiction novels that I've written over the last year or two that all on the same sort of theme of this world that this system which is thousands of planets, and the Earth is in sort of layers. So there's billions and billions and billions of people all living in little domes in these layers that was once the Earth. And that's sort of come into 5 different books now. So it keeps stimulating me.
wow, that's amazing. I feel like sci-fi is one of those really difficult genres to write just because like you have to kind of create your own world, which is incredibly difficult to do.
Well, that's what I enjoy doing. I think I've got a vivid imagination, and I was attracted to science fiction back in the 60s. So, read all the great authors, Asimov and Heinlein and Clarke and all the rest of them. And I was fortunate enough to actually meet Philip K. Dick and spent an evening with him, which was absolutely amazing. But no, science fiction gives you that ability to do anything. You can
Right.
do anything, go anywhere, and that big landscape is just ideal for me. So I can just put my ideas into that.
That's really amazing. So you've also been blogging for quite a while now. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your blog and what made you decide to start blogging?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I don't know how many years, about 8 years, I suppose I've been blogging. I set up the blog, no, most probably 12 years now. I set up the blog after I retired in order to publicize my books.
Yeah.
That was the idea behind it. But unfortunately, being who I am, instead of just focusing on the books, I had to mouth off about everything else. So anything that took my fancy, from humor and jokes and things into social things and politics and all sorts, it just ended up on my blog. So I just write. So whatever comes into my head or I'm interested in or is stimulating, I write about. So you get my views on all sorts of diverse subjects and things, as you can see. And I can be very opinionated, my wife tells me.
Right. I think that's sort of like a side effect of growing up in the 60s. I feel like if you grew up in the 60s and 70s, you have very strong opinions, like politically, on either side.
Well, that's true, yes. And I think the 60s was a fabulous time to grow up because it was so optimistic. So everybody was all enthusiastically looking to build something that was so much better than what we had before. And
Right.
of course, look at this now and you think, what in hell went wrong? Because instead of making a better world, we seem to be making a worse one. I don't know what's wrong with people.
Yeah,
So, the
understand.
60s was all optimism, and I still carry that optimism. I'm still looking. I mean, my blog is focused on that, highlighting what is wrong so we can put it right.
Yeah.
And why have we got this wars going on? Why is this still happening? Why have we got poverty? Why have we got this inequality, the racism, everything else? All the things that we identified as being so incredibly wrong, and they're still there.
Right.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And I think you're also right about the enthusiasm because when I was studying the 60s and 70s, I read things people wrote in their diaries or said or did. And it was like, people truly believed like you were going to create a euphoric society where everyone was happy, where there was no war, there was peace all the time. People saw eye to eye, there was unity and equality and things like that. And I think we've come a long way, but it's sort of sad that those ideals sort of got lost by the end of the 70s, start of the 80s. At least from
Yeah, so
yeah,
I quite agree. Yeah.
yeah,
I think that the thing about the 60s that we really did believe it was possible to bring about massive change and improvement.
right.
And people really did believe that. And when we got into the 70s, I think a lot of our idealism was shown to be a bit naive because the
Mhm.
establishment just took over the revolution and bought it off. And I think so many of the people that appeared to be revolutionary people ended up in the establishment being paid huge sums of money and being bought off by the establishment. So
Absolutely.
we never did get the change that we wanted, really,
Yeah.
and still fighting for it. And that's why I went into education, you see. I still thought that by education you could make a better world.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's one of the best ways to do that because, the younger generations, if you teach them correctly, teach them the right direction they want to head in, it makes a big difference.
yeah, I believe that.
Yeah,
And I still think it's possible, and that's why I still write. I mean, the basis of my writing is based on that 60s idealism,
right.
and that we can make a better future. It doesn't have to be this way, but then we still keep electing these idiots. And you wonder why.
It's really heartbreaking, but it also does make a lot of sense throughout history. Um the more liberal people got, the harder people fought to continue to keep their conservative ideals. So like you'll see throughout history, like if there was a decade that was more liberal, the next decade would definitely be more conservative. And that sort of
Yeah.
unfortunately balanced out the progress and kind of undid a lot of the progress.
Yes, it yo-yos about, doesn't it? And unfortunately, we don't seem to be able to get out of that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was brought up in a very liberal sort of climate, really, and very sort of optimistic. And now I think it's become very conservative, this populist wave, and it's undoing an awful lot of the things that I hold dear.
Yeah.
Equality and the environmentalism and all the rest of the things that we were fighting for. It seemed to have got worse, and we're still fighting the same battles, and that's looking 50 years on.
Yeah, it's definitely very sad to see that. But thankfully there are a lot of people still fighting, a lot of people still trying their best to make sure that things don't get undone and that things move forward, not backwards.
and we have to keep that idealism going and keep fighting for it. And I really believe that education is the future, and we've got to get that education right.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah,
Um,
and that's why I write.
yeah, I think writing any sort of creative stuff, it's a great way to put your thoughts out there, to put your,
Yeah, I believe so.
yeah. So talking of writing, when did you first start writing or know that you wanted to be a writer?
When I was at college, when I was 20 years old, so I started writing in 1969, 70. I was looking around for something to be creative and, had an impulse to be creative and to express myself. And I think the thing about it was that I had a head full of so many ideas.
Right.
I just needed to express them. So I started writing. And I spent most probably 5 years producing my first book,
Mhm.
which was virtually unreadable, really. But I enjoyed writing it, and it went from there. And I've been writing ever since. And as I say, I've produced about 100 books now, maybe more.
That's
I've never really
so impressive.
counted them all.
That's really impressive. But do you have a favorite book out of the many books you've written?
Oh gosh, Pooja, how can you say a favourite book out of all of them? I mean, that's I've got favourites. Well, they're all my babies. They've all been conceived out of my mind. They're all precious to me. I wouldn't, I don't know. Some are obviously better than others. I hope that my writing's got better over the course of the years. The
Mhm.
best book I've ever written is the one I've just finished, obviously. it's it's the freshest in my mind. But
Right.
no, they're all very different, Pooja. I mean, I go back to I wrote one about education, which
Hmm.
is very precious to me because it was a recording of my time in education, and that was a passion for education. The story of a head teacher, and that contains the philosophy by which I did the whole of my teaching right from the beginning. And that's very important, but it's a very different book to the ones on rock music. And I suppose
Yeah.
I've got a publishing deal with Sonic Bond Press, and they've released so far they've released six of mine. No, five of mine. There's one coming out shortly. So I
Mhm.
do the on track ones. So I've done one about Roy Harper, which is the one I'm most proud of, I suppose. But Captain Beefheart, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, and I've got one coming out on Phil Oakes very shortly. They're all my heroes. They're all people that very important to me. I grew up with.
Right.
So it was really a privilege to be able to write about them and have a contract to do that. So I love those books. They're really good. And they offered me a contract to write about albums. So I've just 3 weeks ago I sent in the book on the Beatles Double White album,
Right.
which I've been writing about. And before that, out at the moment is Bob Dylan's Bring It All Back Home, which, of course, was a big, important watershed album from when he first went electric. And that was an amazing book to write. So, yeah, I'm very privileged writing about rock music. And I've written one about Nick Harper as well, another one of my heroes. But also, I write those under the name Opher Goodwin,
Mhm.
which is what everybody knows me as. And I wrote the head teacher's one under the name Christopher Goodwin, but I write my sci-fi under the name Ron Forsyth, which is my mother's maiden name and my father's first name. So I thought that was quite appropriate. So all my sci-fi now is out under Ron Forsyth. And I've got a blog set up for Ron Forsyth as well as Opher Goodwin. So, it keeps me busy. So,
That's really interesting. You're really lucky to write so much about things you're so passionate about that you love, grew up loving.
yeah, well, I write about what I like to write about. I mean, there's no money in writing. I left a very lucrative head teacher's post early so I could devote myself to writing. And I've never regretted that. I mean, I don't make much out of my writing. It's piddling compared with a head teacher's salary, but I enjoy doing it. And if you enjoy doing something, then that's why you do it, isn't it? That's enough in itself.
Absolutely.
So, I do that. But apart from the science fiction and the education and the rock music, I've got loads of poetry books out there. I've got a huge number of other alternative novels and various things. Anything that takes my fancy, I write about. And that is what writing should be. You're not writing for an audience, you're writing for yourself, really. And you just hope that people pick up on the things that you're interested in. And you get an audience of people who are like-minded and appreciate the same things as yourself.
Right. I think that's really good advice for writers out there as well, to just write for yourself and write something that you want to potentially be reading, something that you would love.
Yeah, and I think you've got to write for yourself, but that isn't to say that you don't think about the reader, because you've got to present it in a way that a reader can access it. Mm-hmm. So while you write for yourself, you've got to be aware of the style and method that you're writing in, the arrangement of the things, so that a reader can access what you want them to read, that it reads how you want to express it. So it's not just a selfish exercise. You have got to bear in mind that, writing has to have an audience. If it hasn't got an audience, then it becomes a bit pointless, really. But you don't write for your audience, you write for yourself. And you hope that it's good enough for the audience to appreciate what you've written. And so far, and from the reviews I get of my books, people have really loved what I've been writing. So that's good to hear.
That's wonderful. And for those listening, I will be linking his books in the description on YouTube and on my blog as well. In case you're interested in purchasing any of his books, do check those out. I think they would be a very interesting read. He has a lot of, like he mentioned, there are so many different genres he's a part of.
Jack of all trades, master of none. If I could just stay in one genre, I'd most probably be more successful at that, rather than flitting about from one thing to another, so that my readers don't know what they're getting each time, because things are so very different between one genre and another. But that's what I'm like. I'm interested in so many different things, and those different facets of myself come out in different ways in different books.
True.
So that keeps me interested.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, I think if you're just writing about one thing, it gets boring really fast. Like, you just get sick of it.
Yeah. My mind flits all over the place. So one minute I'm writing about sci-fi, and the next rock music, and the next poem, and that's great. That's what I love doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we're going to move on to some fun questions now, just to keep things fun for our readers too. So the first one is, if you could eliminate one word from the English language, what would it be?
Oh, isn't that difficult? I would suggest Trump might be the word I would never like to hear again. If I could eliminate Trump, that would be absolutely excellent. If he was eliminated, so we're never heard of again ever, I would be very happy. If not that, I suppose Putin, or maybe even Boris Johnson. I could eliminate those. That wouldn't, so never heard of again. But I don't know, how that's just me.
I think a lot of people would agree with you, and you'd find the world to be more peaceful. Okay, the next one. What is your favorite thing about yourself?
Oh gosh, I think the favorite thing about myself is the desire I have to explore. I've traveled the world. I've been to absolutely everywhere, and meeting all sorts of different people, and delving into all sorts of different things. So I like variety and I appreciate variety. So I think that thing that has kept me alive. It's it's there's always more to discover, and that wish to explore and taste and do anything possible. That I think is a very valuable thing, and that's what I like about my personality and character. That I'm not afraid to try different things, not afraid to go to different places, not afraid to meet different people, not afraid to take risks. And that's been the case with my, education career. I wasn't held back. I took risks and did the thing, and it pays off.
Right.
You develop an interesting life that way.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have a lot of great experiences with that sort of attitude that I want to explore things. I want to have an open mind.
Yeah, I mean, part of the thing with my blog is I put out loads and loads of photos of the places I've been and
Yeah, I
explored,
have
and
seen
I
those.
like photographing stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's it.
Okay. So, like you said, you love music. So I have to ask, what album can you listen to again and again without getting sick of it?
Well, I'm nuts about music, so I play stuff incessantly, and I've been to so many gigs, thousands and thousands of gigs, that it's very hard to actually select one thing. But if I was looking at an album I never get sick of,
Right.
it's Roy Harper's Stormcock,
Oh,
which I think is the most amazing album, probably the best album that's ever been recorded. And you can sit and listen to that for hours and hours and never get bored. There's so much in it, both musically and lyrically. It's just an amazing album. And he's an amazing songwriter and singer. Much underappreciated. Not too many people know about him. But that album is just absolutely amazing. So that'd be the one I chose.
that's a good choice. I think I don't know if you know this, but like I discovered so much music because of your blog. Like I've been following
No.
you for quite a few years now, and I think like because you share so much music and I always like listen to it, and I think I just enjoyed the 60s and 70s sounds so much. So I found so much music because of you, like songs that I listen to all the time now.
Well, thank you, Pooja. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
When you run a blog like this, I don't get all that much feedback from my blog because I think I annoy too many people with my views on things. But they always say that, avoid religion, avoid politics, which I never do. I always express my thoughts. And so I don't tend to get a lot of feedback. It's nice to hear that people appreciate what you put out there because often it goes out into a vacuum.
Yeah, I think you're the one who introduced you to what is one of my favorite bands now, the Kinks. You had shared on your, yeah, you had shared their song "Well Respected Man" on your site like
Yeah,
a
that's right.
long
One of
time
my
ago.
favorite ones.
Yeah, that's like now
Yeah,
one
good
of
to
my
hear.
favorites too.
Yeah, yeah.
So the last fun question: what is the book that you'd say changed your life?
Well, again, how can you single things down to one? I suppose the book that really changed my life was Jack Kerouac's On the Road.
Right.
And I read that when I was about 15, and I think it completely changed my outlook on what I wanted to do. And it changed my focus from sort of thinking that what I wanted to do was a career and, so into having a sort of thing of there's more to life than that, and adventure was the basis of what you wanted to have and to explore and to think and travel and do things. And that book just turned me on to that. So I think if you're looking at a book that actually did change my life, it's that book,
Right.
On the Road, Jack Kerouac.
I love that book too. I think anyone who's read it would find it life-changing or at least inspiring. I don't think you can
Yeah,
read that book and not be inspired. It's so brilliant. And I think,
yeah. There are aspects of it now that I'd look back on and think not really quite so good as they once were. I think, experience in life gives you a sort of way of looking back, and I think there's certain aspects of it that are not not quite in line with my thinking now.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the whole premise of the book of that thirst for life, that
Right.
absolute thirst for life, I think has been a transforming aspect of it for me. Absolutely brilliant.
Right. Yeah. I definitely relate to. I think the reason I don't want to reread it is just because I don't want to like undo the magic I felt when I first read it, because I feel like I disagree with a couple of things there too. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, isn't
But
it?
I did get an audio version of the book, which was fun to listen to, and I'd recommend that as well, because not only is it a good read, and I do usually much prefer reading to audio or video even, but nonetheless, the audio one was absolutely brilliant, and I really enjoyed listening to that. So on car journeys, I would often put that on and listen to Jack talking about being on the road and his life, and yeah, inspiring.
That's amazing. I don't think, yeah, I'm not a fan of audiobooks, but that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll check this one out.
Yeah, it works as an audio book. Not many do, but that one does. Really good.
Right. So I think that's the end of the interview. Thank you for being an amazing guest.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. I really enjoyed it, Pooj, and yeah, I look forward to hearing how it goes down on your blog.
Thanks. And is there anything else you maybe want to share before we end the interview?
Well, I can't really think of anything except to say how much I've enjoyed your blog and all the various things that you delve into. You give a really good impression of what happens in your life and in Kenya and in Canada, and the foods and the restaurants and your friends and things. I find that very fascinating. So thank you for that insight.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm so glad you enjoyed that. Yeah, it's always fun to share my life, even if it's just a part of my life. It's fun to share online and, kind of, I don't know, it's like we're like a little community, so it's fun.
Well, that's right. The internet has connected us over distance, hasn't it? And
Yeah.
it's amazing to think that we're talking over a distance of thousands of miles, and here we are connected and have been for many years. And I find that quite amazing, really.
Right.
So,
It's really great. And like the fact that I grew up like as a teenager, since I started my blog pretty young, I like grew up being inspired by you because you had so many books out, like you had great taste in music. So I learned so much from you, even though we've never even met in person.
one day we will, won't we?
Yes, I hope so.
Yes. Okay. Well,
All right.
thanks again, Pooch. That's really been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. It was fun for me too. Thank you.